Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 14. This week, we're going to be talking about violence, abuse, and harassment, which correlates with chapter 14 in our textbook. This week's objectives include being able to describe the prevalence of intimate partner violence, identify and explain at least 3 theories that explain intimate partner violence, and be able to describe and explain the cycle of violence. This week's activities include a violence survey, a theories of violence assignment, a song lyric assignment, and of course your discussion board. I just want to bring you to Blackboard very quickly to show you what the violence survey looks like. And so here's our week's overview. When you click on Violence Survey, it will bring you over here. Now, you are not graded on whether the answers are correct or incorrect, but rather just completing the survey. So you would click on Begin, and it's just a true-false, as you can see here. And again, you are not graded on what answers you're putting, but rather on just completing it. Next, I want to talk about the theories of violence assignment, And so the purpose of the assignment is just to gain a better understanding of the different theories that try to explain violence against women. And for this assignment, you're going to choose just one theory to discuss. So after reading about the different theories on violence, which one do you feel best explains violence? This is a short essay, so your response should be at least 500 words. And I want you to choose a theory, explain it, and then explain why you feel it best explains violence. Again, I'm going to bring you back to Blackboard because the reading is, over here, Theories of Violence Reading. Now, it is quite a lengthy document, so what I would suggest is just looking at the different theories on violence and then choosing one to really read about. The other assignment is a song lyrics assignment. And so this, what I want you to do, the purpose is to analyze messages from mainstream pop music from the perspective of a woman and identify how music and songs glorify taking power over women. So again, I want you to choose a popular song about relationships, find the lyrics on the web, and then using those lyrics, you're going to answer the questions that are located in this document. Let me just pull up the document really quick. And here we are. Describe the nature of the communication between the two people. Does it highlight respect, or is the communication one-sided? Is the relationship healthy or unhealthy, and explain your answer? What lyrics, if any, might suggest unhealthy or abusive relationship? Describe the characteristics of the woman in the song if it's describing a woman. And if it is describing a woman, are those stereotypical of women? Describe the characteristics, if any, of men in the song, and are they stereotypical of men? And then do the lyrics suggest violent solutions to problems? And then, of course, you have your discussion board assignment for this week. One quote that resonated with me is, violence against women and girls continues unabated in every continent, country, and culture. It takes a devastating toll on women's lives, on their families, and on the society as a whole. Most societies prohibit such violence, yet the reality is it's often covered up or tactically condoned. I'm going to read some statements, and I want you to decide or think about whether it's true or false, and then I'll give you the answer. The first statement, a man who verbally intimidates or harasses his partner is not likely to lash out physically. This is false. Verbal intimidation, harassment, and similar actions represent escalating attempts to control the partner. Ultimately, these behaviors will lead to physical violence. True or false? It takes an average of 7 attempts for a battered woman to leave her abusive partner before it is successful, and that is true. Statistics indicate that battered women leave their batterers more frequently than has been believed. Brown indicates that battered women make an average of 7 attempts to leave before they do so permanently. When these women return, they indicated that they were not taken seriously by the person that they were trying to escape. And family members have often pushed the women to go back into their abusive relationship and try harder. Pregnant women tend to be immune to assaults by their partners during the course of their pregnancies. That is false. Pregnant women who have been battered are at higher risk during their pregnancy. For some women, the first instance of battering may occur during their pregnancy. Half of all battered women are abused during their pregnancy. And during this time, the breast, abdomen, and genitals seem to receive the greatest share of blows of physical assaults. Researchers describe the high incidence of battering as a result of the batterer's frustration that someone other than himself, which is the growing fetus, has an impact on her life. Most children who live in violent homes are unaware of the violence. This is false. Only 25% of battered women in shelters believe that their children had been exposed to violence. But in reality, it's closer to 71% of children living in violent homes have witnessed the abuse. Spouse abuse has no long-term impact on children, and once out of the abusive environment, children recover without intervention. And this is also false. Children who witness abuse often suffer from symptoms consistent with post-traumatic stress disorder. It is considered a traumatic event for children. And these symptoms will persist if treatment isn't provided and can be provoked by additional reminders, such as contact with the abuser or witnessing adults arguing and so on. In addition, concurrent factors such as poverty, drug abuse, and living in shelters have their own impact on a child's functioning. So what is violence? It is the intentional use of force or power, threatened or actual, against oneself, another person, or a group or a community, which results or has a high likelihood of resulting in injury, death, or psychological harm, maldevelopment, or deprivation. WHO, which is the World Health Organization, classifies violence as such. Self-directed violence is suicidal behavior, self-mutilation, and risk factors include being female, adolescence or college age, and having a previous history of self-abuse. Interpersonal violence could be family partner violence, stalking, domestic battering, elder abuse, child abuse, and rape, or it can be community violence, robbery, carjacking, aggregated assault, homicide, rape, sexual harassment. When we think about collective violence is violence directed at a specific nation or population, and this could include armed conflicts, genocide, repression, and other human rights abuses, terrorism, and organized violent crimes. Violence directed at women as a group, female genital mutilation, female infanticide, trafficking, and acts of rape during war. We look at perspectives on violence. So these are socio-cultural issues, events that trigger violence, not obeying one's husband or partner, talking back to one's husband and or partner, not having food ready on time, failing to care adequately for children or the home, questioning one's husband's or partner's questions about money or girlfriends, going somewhere without permission, refusing one's husband's or partner's sex requests, and expressing suspicions of infidelity. When we look at gender-based violence, this is a crime predominantly against women. Obviously, it's a violation of human rights, and it has a cyclic nature from cradle to grave. And so what that means is that it tends to occur over and over through generations. Forms of gender-based violence include physical violence, sexual violence, psychological and emotional violence, threats of physical or psychological violence. And gender-based violence can occur throughout a woman's life. So pre-birth, so before a woman is born or a girl is born, there are sex-selected abortions. So what that means is that once the parents find out that the fetus is a female, they will choose to have an abortion. During infancy, there are higher rates of female infanticide compared to male infanticide. And infanticide is the killing of infants. Women infants or girl infants experience more physical abuse, neglect, and a lack of immunization. Childhood and adolescence, amongst girls, there are child marriages, forced marriages, rape, and forced prostitution. And then anywhere from young to elderly, you have partner abuse, widow abuse, and lack of health care. In the United States, most studies indicate that battering occurs across socioeconomic, racial, ethnic, and educational levels. So truly any woman is at risk for being violent to having violence against them. And their backgrounds, how much money they have, their race, their ethnicity, their religion really have no impact on the risk. So therefore, a battered woman is every woman. Now, poor women who are battered are more likely to come to the attention of the authorities than our wealthier women. Some believe that's because of the closer proximity that people from lower socioeconomic statuses, they live in areas where they're closer together, meaning other people can hear the violence and call the police. Whereas wealthier women live in estates, they have more property around them, they're more isolated, so there aren't a lot of witnesses to that violence. Here's the cycle of violence. I will go over it in the next few slides, but if you want to go back and look at this, just make sure you download the PowerPoint for this week. Stage 1 is tension building. Domestic violence victims in this stage often describe feeling as if they're walking on eggshells when describing the building of tension and activity and anxiety. At this point, the victim also believes they can still diffuse or calm their partner by using techniques that have been used in the past. Women who have experienced or who lived through this tension building often say this is the most difficult phase of the violence because they're always on guard, they're always nervous, they're just waiting for that explosion to happen. The second stage is the acute explosion. So all that tension that built up in stage 1 escalates into an explosion. And this is usually considered the assault, but this could be verbal, it could be humiliating, attacking the victim's self-esteem, self-worth, or this could also be physical. Some women have described that after being in that stage 1, that tension building stage for too long, they will often do something to provoke the violence. I don't want to say provoke as if they're deserving it, but they will do something that they know will bring on the violence just to get that first stage over with, to stop feeling as if they're walking on eggshells. Stage 3 is the honeymoon stage, and this is the hopeful stage for the victim, also described as the honeymoon stage due to the behavior by both parties. So following stage 2, the abuser will often exhibit loving and attentive behavior towards the victim in hopes of forgiveness. It's common for the victim to believe the abuse is her fault as well and is also apologetic, and they're just very loving to each other during this stage. And then of course the cycle's back around. So after a period in the honeymoon stage, it'll cycle back to the tension building stage. This is a violence wheel, and basically it talks about the different forms of power and control. Again, I'm going to not go over all of these, but feel free to download the PowerPoint and look over the violence wheel. This concludes our PowerPoint for this week. Have a wonderful week, and if you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me.